CTV News with Kelly Gregg.
Good evening. Thousands took to the streets of downtown today to celebrate Montreal's first ever Walter Cup title. The PWHL's Montreal Victoire brought home the hardware, the only Canadian team to ever do it. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil reports.
They waited years for a moment like this, and Saturday they got to celebrate it with the city. Tears, chants, and a few sips from the Walter Cup. 10 days after making history, the Montreal Victoire hit the streets downtown and made their way to Place des Festivals, where thousands of fans were already waiting. It was a chance for players to soak it all in and say thank you.
You guys absolutely surpassed what we were expecting. It's absolutely amazing. We love you guys so much.
Having a fans, it helps us when it's down, and it brings us on top when it's good.
It was also a moment for longtime fans.
We've been waiting for this day. This is a huge moment for women and little girls.
We've been following the girls since they were in the CWHL. So to see them from arenas where you've got like 30, 40, 50 fans, to seeing them in Verdun, to seeing them in Place Belle, it's been a pretty amazing experience.
The pride extended far beyond the players on the ice. Corey Chevrolet has been behind the bench since day one.
It's a moment I'll never forget, and I want to live it over and over and over again.
Among those joining the party was Montreal Mayor Soraya Martinez-Ferrada. She called the championship a milestone for the city and a powerful symbol.
Having a woman mayor again for the second time, a mayor that is for the first time an immigrant, have for the first time a women's sport, win the cup. I mean, how amazing is that? It's a year for women.
This celebration may last a day, but forward Laura Stacey says it will have a lasting impact.
I hope next year's registration is full because there's something to dream about.
Abby Rock says that also includes Indigenous people everywhere.
To be an example, to be a role model, it means a lot to me, and I want more young Indigenous players playing because it's an amazing sport. It brings you amazing places.
The Victoire are already looking ahead. The PWHL draft is just weeks away, and in a city that's had a taste of a championship, there's only one goal.
Let's do this again next year, Montreal!
Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil, CTV News.
And the Victoire got a shout out from one of Quebec's biggest celebrities. That's right, Celine Dion tweeted about the Victoire after they belted out, "It's all coming back to me now." The team uses one of her songs as intro music at home games. After last night's intense storms, there are still around 11,000 homes in Quebec without power. The vast majority are in the Outages region, with other outages in the Laurentians and the Mauricie. For children who have lost a loved one, it can be especially difficult and confusing to grieve. Myra's Kids Foundation has a solution. Lauren Fernandez reports.
So I said, how can we bring him into the picture? And we're wearing all of his shirts.
Jessica Senior still thinks of her late husband, Ben, every day. He died 5 years ago from cancer. It happened in the midst of the COVID lockdown.
We found out that he had stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. And in doing my research, I discovered that the chances of survival were quite slim. I sought support. My children were 2, 4, and 6 at the time.
Too young to process the loss, Myra's Kids Foundation became a lifeline for the family with year-round support programs for free.
I'm raising my kids to be emotionally intelligent, to have the awareness to talk about their grief and not bottle up their emotions.
That's exactly why John Ryder started the foundation 9 years ago and named it after his mom.
My mom died when I was 3 years old. And in the early 1960s, when that tragedy befell me, there was no support network.
Hoping to change that for future generations, Ryder decided to create what he calls a safe space to honor loved ones, including a camp.
We have a memory board where everybody brings a picture and they introduce us to their special person. We have on the last night of camp a lantern ceremony where the children have decorated lanterns and they send a special message to their special person.
Everyone has a similar story a bit, and it's nice to all be together there.
The minute they step onto the bus to go to camp, they turn to each other and they say, "Who died in your family?" Something that you could never do walking into school or feel comfortable doing something like that. So it's really something very special.
The seniors say they found a true support system and second family.
I have made such wonderful friends, and there's an unspoken bond.
Making a difference for so many, John was awarded the King Charles Coronation Medal.
It was very, very meaningful. I was very humbled by it. My mom would be exceptionally proud.
He says the foundation is a way to keep his mother's memory alive while helping children and their families heal. Lauren Fernandez, CTV News.
Claude Lemieux's family has released a statement saying they will be donating his brain to research into traumatic injuries. It will be given to the Brain Bank at Boston University. They emphasize this is not a diagnosis and more research needs to be done. The family says they hope his life can continue to help others. Lemieux died on Thursday by suicide. Turning to tennis now, where Félix Auger-Aliassime has advanced at the French Open. After dropping the first set, he beat Brandon Nakashima 5-7, 6-1, 7-6, 7-6. Auger-Aliassime now looks to advance past the fourth round for the first time in his career. He will play again on Monday. And Victoria Mboko's run at the French Open ended today. The number 9 seed lost in a marathon 3-set match to American Madison Keys. It's the second straight year Mboko failed to make it past the third round of the tournament. She was the last Canadian women's player in the draw. There's an effort underway to save a garden in Chinatown. It's the only one that brings together both Asian and Indigenous communities. Anastasia Destrine has that story.
The Gahadayan Loom Garden sits across from the Montreal Chinese Hospital, and for 3 years, it's transformed a once vacant lot owned by the city into a place for growing food.
People can bring plants, and whatever is grown here is fed to the residents or whoever needs it.
It's also become a place for growing community. And with her Wendat ancestry, Yvonne Léa Carpentier-Wheeler says the garden is one of a kind.
Being able to garden here and learn and have these workshops with Indigenous leaders really helps me kind of like reconnect with that in a way.
The space is a partnership between Chinatown residents, Projet Autochtone du Québec, and local youth. To this day, it remains Montreal's only Indigenous Asian collective garden. In addition to hosting events, it provides free vegetables to those in need. But leaders including Anna Can say the future of the garden is in doubt.
This was meant to be a temporary lease from the start, and it's been up for sale by the city for off-market social housing.
According to Can, the garden's lease with the city is set to end in December. Organizers want to renew the lease and keep the space. As of Saturday afternoon, more than 600 people had signed a petition to show their support.
My hopes are at least we could keep a garden of some sort. There's not much garden space in Montreal. There's not a lot of greenery.
When we first started this garden, like all the older senior citizens, they weren't here. And now they're showing up and talking and, coming and watering.
In a statement to CTV News, Mayor Soraya Martinez-Ferrada's office wrote there is no lease ending for the garden, adding that support has been renewed until a housing project moves forward. But members of the community who are responsible for signing the lease insist they have yet to sign a document, and they're frustrated with the level of communication with the city.
With the change in administration, I feel like it's rebuilding those links that have been hard. They're adjusting as well.
And as the garden opens for a third season, visitors hope it won't be the last. Anastasia Destrine, CTV News.
Weather brought to you by Gratian Scaff's 50th anniversary gift event. Get a complete second pair and sunglasses as a gift.
Now for a look at your forecast. We're at 13 degrees right now in Montreal, cooler outside the city, 8 in Quebec and 7 in the townships. Waking up tomorrow to scattered showers. We could see some clear breaks in the early afternoon, the high 18 degrees. The rest of the week, a mix of sun and cloud. Temperatures back up into the 20s, much closer to what we would expect for this time of the year. Coming up, after a South Shore brawl video went viral, how to talk to teens about when to film and the repercussions. A video of a brawl on the South Shore has led to the arrest of 13 minors. It shows a fight, with those filming encouraging those involved and not calling police. So if your child ends up in this situation, what do you do? Tina Montreuil is with McGill's Department of Education, and she joins us now. Thank you so much for being here, Tina.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first off, how do you even start this conversation about what to do in a situation like this one with your children?
Yes. So I think the best thing to do is just really ask an open question, like ask our teen what they know, what they've heard, what their friends have talked about regarding this event or similar events. And it's to basically engage in a conversation where we try to really get them to tell us, for example, what are their thoughts about those types of events? Have they ever been in a similar situation? And then maybe extrapolate to, well, if let's say you were in a situation such as this one, how would you react? And I think maybe also try to talk about the different types of reactions that one could have, because there's always the person that's engaging in the violent behaviors. There's the kind of person that's there as a bystander, not really doing anything wrong per se or attacking, but you're still there. You're not necessarily inhibiting these things from happening. And then you can also engage in, for example, what we've seen that's happened, like film or sort of profit from those types of events, even though you're not the one harming. So I think you want to have those conversations with your children, be aware of what's happening online, what teens do, where they get their rush, or what they try to do to become more socially desirable, especially with social media, so that you have the vocabulary to actually have these conversations with them. But let them lead the discussion and try to just fill in the gaps wherever there's a gap or where they're not necessarily speaking.
Yeah, because, I mean, for the teens involved, even though they may not have been throwing punches, police say those who filmed the fight could be charged with aiding and abetting. So how do you ensure your kids don't get swept up in the moment? Because obviously there's a lot of pressures going on at that time as well when it's in that moment.
Absolutely. So I think it's really having those conversations with our children. It's really talking about, this issue of like the immediate gratification, like the rush. We have to understand that teenage years, if you recall, or maybe you don't, but it's really sort of chronologically developmental. It's normal for them to want the rush, but you have to explain, for example, what might be more adaptive or safe ways or secure ways to do that. But certainly you want to also talk about, like the sort of the rush of the moment, and maybe there's a couple of likes that you might be getting online, but also talk about the repercussions. I think the media have been clear about what some of these teens who have filmed, who have posted these images and these videos, what is now the aftermath of those actions. They're criminal investigations and criminal, sort of judicial consequences, and you want to be able to have these discussions with your children so that they can think more critically about, the cost of this type of digital clout and wanting to be popular on social media.
Yeah, you mentioned digital clout. I mean, it seems like the first instinct when something like this is happening, or even, something else like a car crash, a medical emergency even, is pull out the phone and film, because whether we like it or not, those videos do well online. They get a lot of eyeballs. So how do you kind of approach that? Because, of course, kids also want to be popular online and have those videos do well.
Yeah, well, I think there's many ways to answer this question, but really sort of more like not from a preventative stance, but more sort of like, how do you deal with it when it happens? I think the thing we have to teach our teens and our children is that when we are witness to these types of violent events, the first thing that we need to do is really remove ourselves from these situations, is to seek safety at the cost of what social consequences might be, our friends putting us down or really ridiculing us. So we really have to teach our kids that sometimes it's actually the right thing, or it's actually cool to be in the moment, or by certain people to be uncool. And then the next thing you want to do is to make sure that your teens feel comfortable calling you or contacting you to so that they can seek help. And so really, the previous question with regards to how do you approach this situation, how do you discuss it with your teen, talk about the consequences that are, sort of judiciary or whether it's like illegal, and then talk about, here's what you need to do in order to avoid that. And perhaps, like if your teen wants to engage in things that are more online, it's to think about adaptive and things that will actually be beneficial, pro-social, to really help them grow, maybe a following, but a following for doing, sort of community or good things to our society, and not things that could actually hinder other people's safety and worst of all, get them into trouble as well.
All right, Tina, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time, but certainly very interesting. Some great advice for parents. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much.
Time now for In Case You Missed It, a recommendation this week from Quebec's Commissioner of the French Language. He says English should be removed from Quebec government websites to set an example. Here's Matt Gilmore.
When you visit a government website like revenuequebec.ca, there's a button at the top right corner that says English. Click it and an English version of the website will appear. But a recent report by the Commissioner of the French Language argues government websites should be in French only, with limited exceptions.
The idea of the Charter of the French Language in 1977 was to say, let's create spaces within which the use of French will be mandatory, will be required to counterbalance the influence of English.
Benoit Dubreuil is the man tasked by the National Assembly with monitoring the implementation of the Charter. He says when Bill 96 was passed, it included a new idea that the state should set an example.
Basically, it means that the government of Quebec, its agencies and departments should make exclusive use of French unless you are in a situation where an exception applies.
Exceptions like health and safety and services to people with English education eligibility, Indigenous people, and newcomers within the first 6 months of their arrival. In 2023, the French language minister insisted the government would rely on the good faith of Quebecers, and banners started appearing on government websites linking to the policy.
From our perspective, this approach is not effective.
Instead, Dubreuil says English online services should only be available after eligible Quebecers have logged in.
If you have like those private spaces where you have to log in, I think the implementation is pretty easy.
But for advocates of the English-speaking community, that's a concerning idea.
We're talking about really surveillance of the English-speaking community. That was our initial argument in the beginning, which is why Mr. Roberge made an abrupt change and offered his promise that it would be on a good faith system.
In Quebec City, Jean-François Roberge said he would study the report, but plans to keep the good faith mechanism in place. Matt Gilmore, CTV News.
After the break, sunshine, tunes, and community connections at Verdun's Porchfest.
Menswear provided by Ernest. Elevate your style with Ernest. News and local news that matters to you. Download the CTV screen using your smartphone. Or you can also go to our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca.
The streets of Verdun were filled with music today. The second edition of Porchfest featured more than 80 artists who performed across Verdun and Nuns Island. Although the weather was a little cool, hundreds came out to enjoy some local talent. Organizers say the event isn't just a celebration of music, but a way to bring the neighborhood together.
I grew up in NUG and they do it there, NUG Porchfest, and I think it's such a great idea, and now we live in Nuns Island and we're trying to promote community locally, and we figured this would be an amazing fit. And then of course, do it in Verdun, because like, how cool is Verdun?
Artists, we already have a porch, so if they're from Verdun, they have their own porch. If they're outside of Verdun, I will match them with porches. So Verdunners will volunteer to let their porch be used for Porchfest, and I'll match them up with a performer.
Well, that wraps it up for us tonight. For the latest news, you can listen to Weekends with Joanne Vrakis tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on CJD 800. And of course, you can always head to CTV News Montreal for more coverage for our website. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening and take care of each other.